this is your introduction to Dotstorming. It is kind of a cool website and really easy to use. I hadn't heard of this one before, but it's got some interesting applications. The big drawback is that when you have the free version, you're limited to one active board. I'm not 100% sure what that means because as soon as I signed up for an account, it gave me a 30-day free trial of the gold plan to get me hooked, right? So I don't have a great sense of how the free version compares to the gold account. But it does have some really cool stuff, so let's take a look. The first thing, there's a link on our one-pager, the one that says link to our class.storming board, that I have put in there so that you can play around with this. As you are adding tools as part of day 4, add a little logo of your tool on here and we can vote on which ones we think are the most useful. I have it set so that everyone gets 10 votes. And so I've already used 4 of mine, so I can vote for things multiple times. Like I think Stormboard's pretty cool, so maybe I'll give it another vote. My votes show up in green, other people's show up in black. I had tested it on my phone and tested it on the computer, so those are the other votes in there. There's also a chat that I have enabled so we can kind of argue back and forth or, you know, say our favorite thing about our various tools. So this is kind of a neat way to collaborate asynchronously so that we can come back and look at it anytime and see how it's at. You can change on here to rank by votes, so the ones that have the most votes will go to the top, or you can turn that off. One thing I will say, I have all the permissions on so that anyone who has this link up here can go in and post things. This is not how I would do it in the classroom, because anyone with that link can add a card or upload an image. They don't have to sign in with their real name or any sort of ID. So just from a, you know, security point of view, I would not leave permissions as open if I were working with students at the K-12 level, unless I really, really trusted them. An example of what I might do in a K-12 classroom is this engineering challenges one. Maybe I want to have students vote on what our next engineering challenge shall be. If you signed into this one, you would see that I've only allowed voting, and even for myself up here, the settings to upload new images are turned off. I left it on 10 votes as well. That said, students can sign in with as many devices as they would like once they have the link. And so you could have some rampant voter abuse there that you need to be cognizant of. But it seems like a cool way to decide on something fun to do. Okay, so let me start a new board and let you see what that process is like. It's very simple. One of the weird things about this website, my understanding is that this is made by one person. It's not like a company or a, you know, bigger endeavor. And so there's some little weirdness. One thing is that every time it titles a new board, it titles it with the email address you signed up for, and your browser reads that as a password. It's like a login, so it like prompts you to put in the password, which is a little bit, I don't enjoy that part. So for this one, I'm going to do Scratch Trainings board. Okay, I can change the votes to however many I want. I don't think you can turn voting off until you get into the board, and I'm not really sure why you would want to. The whole point of this site is voting. You can choose to password protect it so that people from outside of your school with the link can't get in there. You can decide whether you're sharing with a link or with email invitations. And if you're sharing with email invitations, I think that's one way to prevent, you know, voter fraud and Dotstorming. So when we start the board, and see, it's trying to save this as a password. No, we're never doing that. So I can add a card, which this one could just be informational, like, okay. That's what that looks like. People can comment on my card. And that's what that looks like. You don't see them on this screen, but when you click on it, you can see what everyone has written. Upload an image is what I've been using for most of this. I like the visual thing. So I'm just going to select some images from my desktop. Not my desktop, just kidding. So I'm going to click open there. For a while when I first started, it was giving me a hard time and not letting me upload until I typed something in here. So I started just typing a space in. If you have that issue, that's one way to get around it. You can always then go back in and edit it if you want to get rid of it or if you want to add more information. Okay, and so that's as simple as it is. All I would do to share, I can click here. The link here, you'll notice, is the exact same as this URL. It's not something special or different. So you would just send that link to anyone you would want to share with, unless you chose the email option. And now that we're all familiar with embed codes, you also have an embed code. So if you wanted to put a Dotstorming board on your website or on a particular page, maybe before or after a lesson, that would be a really cool way to do it. And so students could go there, they would see the board embedded and be able to work with it in there, which is kind of neat. I like that option. So once I finish putting things on my board, I can say lock board, and then these two options go away. I, as the person who created it, as the owner, can always make the board editable again. But locking the board will prevent anyone with the link from being able to upload images. Right now, I still have comments on, but I can disable commenting and I can disable voting. So those are all options there. Now, let's put some votes in there and see what happens. I actually have not played around with this. So if I click on this dark green dot, it goes away. I have to click on the light green dot to give more votes to something. So if I say clear board, I can decide whether I want to remove votes only or remove participants' votes, comments, and chat. So when you're totally done with everything, you can clear out your board and set it back to how it was. Okay, or you can just take the votes out and leave in all of the comments, participants, and things like that. So that's one way to reset it. Like I said before, with only having one board, I'm not sure how that works, whether you're able to save it in any way and just not have it be editable and make it active. It makes it seem like it's not that way. Show card creators, that's an option you can turn on. So you can see if your participants are putting in things, but they can make up whatever name they want. So that's not a huge added security feature for me. And then enable private voting, I'm assuming, means that you can't see who voted for what. So that's something that I would definitely consider doing depending on what it is. Okay. The themes are part of the gold package, so it's not something that would be available in the free version. I'm not sure about exporting board, whether that's something you can do even when you're you know, not a complete member of the site. But it looks like it exports as an Excel file, which is kind of interesting. Let's see what it looks like. Maybe it'll be a way for us to save voting, be able to see. So let's take a minute for that to load up. Okay, so let's open some of these up. Okay, so yeah, you get the content. The attachment, it must be my image. It must save it like that. Who owned it, the votes, when it was created, any comments, and who wrote the comments. I wonder how that works with multiple comments. That might be kind of interesting to see. But that's the basic overview of Dotstorming. I think it's kind of a cool application. I'm not sure whether it's something I would think would be worth investing in, but it does seem like a cool way. Some things that I've thought of is you could use it to gather opinions about a particular event, process, or item being more important than another event. I know when I was teaching 7th grade, I had them do a debate of the various body systems against each other. Like if maybe first up would be the respiratory system versus the nervous system, right? And so I'd have kids arguing for why their system was more important. And I had like a bracket, so whoever won that debate would go on and debate the next system that won their match. And then at the end, I would just be like, you're all wrong. We need all of them to live. None of them are like completely inessential. We kind of need all of them to survive as a species. So I would consider doing something like that, even if I knew there's not like a good argument for making one more important than the other, like organelles in the cell or something like that. I think it would be fun to do because it gets kids thinking, especially when they have multiple votes like that. They have to decide how important things are to them. It's not just like, okay, this one I think is the best. They really have to get into it. It's like, okay, well, I really think this one's important. Do I want to give it 5 votes or 6 votes? And so there's some real thought that has to go into that and some critical thinking there. Uh, I think it's a fun tool, kind of similar to Padlet, but the voting is definitely an interesting thing, and it's super simple to set up. So that's Dotstorming. Have fun with it. I want to see what you come up with.